Welcome to USA Global TV and Radio, where our mission is to provide education, entertainment, hope, and inspiration. USA Global TV and Radio connects you with experts and audiences all around the world every single day to help you succeed in business and to live a richer life. Visit us at usaglobaltv.com to learn about career and life-changing training and mentoring programs like the Listening Mentor. Subscribe to our newsletter to stay informed about our special programs and offers. Discover how you can become a guest on one of our shows or a host or producer of a USA Global TV and Radio show of your very own. That's USA Global TV and Radio, where the doctor is always in.
Hello, USA Global TV and Radio watchers and listeners. For those that's new to the show, welcome. This is Talking Heads with me, Mariska du Preez. And for those of you that has returned, welcome back. We are continuing on our psychological safety journey. And if you have missed the previous ones regarding psychological safety, please go to our platform and have a look. So the first one, we looked at inclusion safety. And during our second episode, we were looking at learner safety. And today we're going to look at contributor safety. So the reason that we are doing them in this sequence is looking at Timothy, and now I need to remember his surname, Clark's work. He has looked at psychological safety and broken it down into more basic components in order for us to understand how to build psychological safety in our teams and in our work environment. And of course, starting off, we first need to feel included. If we don't feel included as a human being, we do not feel safe to contribute. Then next, we need to feel like we can learn in the environment. And if we feel that we can't learn in the environment, again, we will shut down and not feel safe. And now we are going to look at contribution. So for us to be able to contribute in our environment, we also need to feel safe to do so. Now, first off, contribution safety is one of those things that we sort of think, well, how does this work? I'm at work in any case, so aren't I contributing already? Yes, and. So for most of us, we get into our role and it might be new to us or it might be a new organization that we're working for. So we need to first find that psychological safety and that environment safe enough for us in order to start to contribute. Now we can contribute in two different ways. For most organizations, we either contribute in the execution, so physically doing the work that needs to be done, or we contribute in innovation. So this is new ideas, bringing new things to the fore. And within innovation, there's two ways of contributing again. So within innovation, either we look at being forced to innovate. So that would be in a situation where we have done this specific thing for a certain way for so long, and then all of a sudden our supplier or our environment lets us know that, hey guys, we want something different and we need to change our approach. So that's one way where organizations find that they might need to innovate. And the other might be that we look at what it is that we want to create in the future and then look at our innovation and how we want to move towards that direction. And that's a different way of innovating. Now, for all of these, we need to be able to have a team that wants to contribute to any or all of these different systems that we work with them. So typically in execution, it is what we are hired for, it is what we do. Within innovation, for most people, when we are forced to innovate, so if we are going to lose business because the market is changing or our customers want something different from us, then we accept that that needs to happen and we contribute to that. When we get into the innovation where it is something new we have not even thought of before, well, that's a bit of a different story, and we will actually look at that next week. So for today, the main focus is going to be when we execute or when there is some innovation that needs to take place. Now, the other thing that we need to take into consideration for contribution safety is where the person has actually gained their expertise or the thing that they're bringing to the table, because they need to contribute. Now, we can do this in 4 different ways. We can contribute formally, and it is given to us immediately. Formally, and we gain it over time. Informally, and we get it immediately, or informally, and we gain it over time. Now, if you think about a lawyer or doctor, typically they will write the exam, and there you go. You now, especially in the case of law, you go and sit the bar exam. Now you're a lawyer. Wonderful. And you can start to take cases. In the case of doctors, they will go through their practicals and all the rest of it, and then they will do their exams, and now you are a practicing physician or whatever doctoral thing it is that you are doing. In the case of engineers, it sort of works the same in the sense that you will go into your engineering studies, you will finish your studies, and then you get your certificate. Yay, now I can go and apply for work. I'm a qualified engineer. Now, in the engineering field, and I'm going to use that as my main example because that's the system that I know best, we have our qualified engineers, and then we have our artisans. Now, even within the qualified engineering space, if I have just received my certificate and I go into the space, I will not necessarily be given the biggest, hairiest job on the site, right? Not going to happen. That's going to go to our seasoned engineers. I'm most probably going to get some or other project that is fairly small so that they can first see how I handle that and then move from there. Now, that is also the case when we think about artisans. So when we think about an artisan, that is somebody that has learned their practical skills. Now they come in. Now, first off, they are apprentice and they need to learn, and then they upgrade to an artisan. So this has a formal deadline and you get it immediately, but you're still a apprentice artisan. So you're still learning a little bit more. And that goes over time. And this is part of the formal over time process that they work through. Now, the informal ones look a little bit different in the sense that we don't necessarily go and study for it. So when you think about informal, well, leadership sort of falls into that bracket. There is some leadership studies that you can do, but for most people, they do the technical studies first, and then they move into leadership. Now you get the informal immediate. You are appointed as the team leader. Great. Do you know what you're doing? Most probably not. Which is fine. Don't worry about it. Most people sit with that when they start out, as did I. Now you also get the informal gradual. So your informal gradual is where you go into that space and gradually you grow into becoming better and better and better at it. And this might be maybe being on a team and taking on different projects that I then become the leader of the project, And later on, I move into leading bigger projects, that sort of thing. So that would be more of an informal, gradual process that I go through. So that's how we look at this contribution safeties. Now, to give you guys a little bit of an idea of how this might look like in real life, I have a couple of examples. So we give people contribution safety when we see that they are ready. To give you the first example is one of my artisans, still learning. So he got his artisan qualification, but he was still learning, so apprentice artisan. And he worked with another artisan that was a senior artisan. And he complained to me one day that the operating staff did not ask him any questions around what was going on in the plant or ask specifically for him to come and help with anything. And I said, well, first off, you need to make sure that they know that you know what you are doing. And he looked at me for a while and then said, but how do I do that? So I said, well, the easiest way I know of doing that is when you go to a problem that you and your senior artisan are fixing. I know that typically you will do most of the work because, the senior artisan has done this before and you're the one learning. So you also know exactly what it is that you worked on and what you found, what problems you found, and how you fixed it. So instead of your senior artisan going back to the operating staff and giving them feedback around what happened, what went wrong, and how it was fixed, ask your senior artisan that you want to give them feedback. Even if he is there in the operating room with you, that's all good, but you want to give the feedback. And he tried it out. It took about 3 months and he was as happy as can be. The operators started to ask him to come and look at certain problems on the plant, and he was very, very happy to be able to be called for, well, of course, a variety of different issues that came up. So that's the way that he showed to the operators that he was able to contribute. And it also created contribution safety for him, having his senior artisan there while he was giving feedback. So he knew that he also had the support of the senior member and they could see it that he was supported. So worked out really well. Then I also have a story that didn't necessarily go as well. So this was a plant that failed. One of our conveyor belts snapped and we had to fix it. Now, the team at the time, I was the leader of the team, and the team worked on other conveyor belt type of problems before, but we have never done this specific type of problem before. And a lot of the people on the team has done bits and pieces, but never as a group. So this was quite a new thing for, well, everybody, including myself. Also, I had, and I really appreciate the leader that I had at the time. So I had a very supportive leader. And he said, well, what is it that you guys need? We made our plans, tried to figure out what it is that we needed, spoke to people that has done this type of thing before, and came up with something, gave it to him and said, well, this is what we're planning. This is how it's going to look like. Went through it. Everything was good. Quite happy. Started off doing the work. Now, one of the artisans that I had on my team at this stage, also young, not as experienced with this sort of work. I think he did one of them once before, but on a flat piece. Now, this specific conveyor had a tendency to do a little dip in the middle. Now, if you've ever worked on conveyor belts, you will know that strapping them down when you cut them, very, very good idea, because otherwise you end up with a whole bunch of spaghetti in the ditch. And that's not a lot of fun to get rid of. So, unfortunately, we didn't strap it down the way that we were supposed to. Even after one of the more experienced guys came along and said, hey, make sure that you tighten this piece, so the two pieces that straps down the conveyor belt really, really tightly in order to ensure that it won't go anywhere. So I asked my artisan, hey, did you guys double check that? And I got the thumbs up. It was good. They were happy with it. So I said, okay, fine. Well, you guys are happy with it. Let's then do the cut. So we cut it, and the conveyor belt's supposed to move a little bit, but not the amount that it moved. So it ended up running all the way into the ditch, which caused a whole bunch of spaghetti and about 2 extra days of work. Not a lot of fun. So I can say that contribution safety was then a little reduced for some of the members of the team because of the fact that we had a bit of a boo-boo. And also, we needed to get it sorted out. Now, my leader also showed me that we need to make a plan, and taking away contribution safety was not necessarily always the best way to go. So, what's some of the things that we can learn as leaders to help our team with contribution safety? So first off, increase your power of observation. So we're going to go through 3 in total. So increasing your power of observation is really understanding what your different team members are good at and how they can best contribute. So understanding that and understanding better, so initially with the one that was a boo-boo, understanding for me how this person, what type of work they did before on the conveyor systems, where they were, what experience they had, would have been very helpful if I understood it in order for me to go, well, you said that it is tight enough. Can we maybe get one of the other guys that has experience to double check? Because I know that you've done some of these things before, but you haven't done this before. So going back a little bit to our learner safety piece in order for us to contribute fully. So being observant also means that I needed to ask more questions because I need to find out what you worked on before, how it looked like, and get all of that sort of information in order to determine, is this the best person for this specific task? Yes or no. So that is increasing our power of observation. So this might be task observation, this might be strengths of the team observation, this might be things that they're not so good at. So understanding our team's weaknesses also within our powers of observation. And of course, looking at team dynamics, understanding how they work together and what works for them and what doesn't work for them. Then the second one is our telling versus asking continuum. Now, I know for most of the leaders that I work with, especially if they went from a specialization into leadership, and even for leaders that went further into their leadership, this is something that they do struggle with a lot. And it is thinking about our continuum from telling to asking. So for most people, because we come from an expert environment, we are typically the first one to say, this is how it should work. Now, when you are the leader, that is something that you need to relearn because you have a whole team. and you have a lot more insights within the team that you can utilize rather than only your one brain. So, understanding how many times am I telling people what to do versus asking what they think we should do and how they think we should do it. So that helps them to contribute to the thing that we are creating. And please, please do not ask them what their thoughts are if you plan on shutting them down and telling them what to do, because that is definitely going to make a lot more damage than you just telling them up front. So if your plan is to tell them in any case, then just tell them. Because if you're going to ask them and then seem like you want them to contribute and then tell them, it's going to blow up in your face. So please don't do that. So the asking questions, really finding out for yourself and evaluate yourself. How many times do I tell people what to do? And how many times do I ask them what they think we should do before I have even said anything? Which actually brings us to point number 3. And point number 3 is around listening. And this is listening before speaking. Now, I recall a story from Nelson Mandela, and somebody asked him around his leadership and how he came to be the leader that he was. And he said that he used to look at his dad when they had their meetings. And his dad would always talk last. So if there was something that they discussed or anything that they needed to brainstorm, his father would pose the question and let all the other members talk first before he would put his idea in the ring. Now, the reason why this is so important is if, as a leader, we speak first, we are very subtly telling everybody the direction we want them to go in. Now, the problem with this is that we silence them. We do not get the ideas of the group because they first see what our idea is. So the only ideas that they're going to pitch is the ones that sort of correlate with our idea. And this is really important, especially when we moved from a specialization into a leadership position. And there's a lot of leaders even going up in their leadership that forget this. It is important because when we are the expert and going from that expert position, we typically need to have our voice heard. So we learn to bring our ideas and put it on the table when the question is asked. So we are very eager to do this for most people. Now, going back to observing, right? Understanding who in our team actually do bring ideas to the table when we are having those discussions, and who enjoys to solve the problem on their own and then actually don't bring any ideas to the table. So we want all the voices to be heard. So another thing to be in our observation bucket. But really understanding that when we speak, it is seen as an instruction. So we need to be very mindful to let people know when we have this silly idea about something, and they are more than welcome to shut it down because, well, we literally don't know whether it's worth even thinking about or putting any energy into. And also only doing that at the end, once we have heard from everyone else, because then we actually show that we are open to other ideas and other ways of thinking, and not just the one thing that we have already decided on. So all three of these help us to invite in contribution from the team. And as the leader, it is our duty to do this. It's part of our role and our responsibility to be able to do this, because it is not our role anymore to fix the problem. We need to help the people that fix the problem to fix the problem. So understanding our role and also helping to cultivate contribution safety will not only help us, it will also help our team to then perform a lot better. And as a little last caveat to all of this, do remember that if we do not have psychological safety, performance, out the door. Don't even think about performance, because we will not focus on any performance whatsoever if we do not feel safe. If we do not feel safe, the only thing we're worried about is protecting ourselves. All we're worried about. So we first need to make sure that we have psychological safety before we worry about performance. And this is why contribution safety is that next step in order for us to make sure that we actually have all the building blocks in place in order for us to be well performing and executing and innovating in all the great ways that we can do that. So if you would like to learn a little bit more about psychological safety, or if you are a leader that is going into leadership and you're not quite new to it, or you're moving up in your leadership position, do get in contact. And you can do that via my email, which is mariska@journey2discover.com. Or alternatively, please do connect via LinkedIn. Write me a little note saying that you found me here on USA Global TV and Radio, and we can start our conversation and explore leadership and how to become the best leader you can be. Until next week, I hope you enjoy practicing all those psychological safety tips, and I will see you then. Bye.